just the introduction stated, I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina. Founded a company called Urban Offsets that's based around carbon offsets. Now, I don't want to talk about carbon offsets necessarily for my whole presentation, so I put up this one slide as a breakdown. I have a larger context in the appendix if anybody has questions about it, but for the context of this presentation and for our business case, I'm going to be talking about carbon offsets, and one carbon offset is a metric ton of carbon dioxide removed from the atmosphere that can be certified and verified in a very real way. Okay. So, a little background. I started this company with the idea of transforming city trees into infrastructure assets for cities. I have an urban forestry background, an environmental consulting background. Spent a lot of years, about 15 years, working with cities and corporations, cleaning up gas station spills, some what do you call them, brownfield sites in cities, stuff like that, doing tree inventories. And trees always lost out. Everybody loves a tree, everybody loves to plant a tree, but every tree that's planted by a city is essentially hampering that city with a 40-year expense and liability. If a tree falls on somebody, the city's liable for it. And yet trees cost a lot of money to maintain. Average $500 to $1,000 for a 40-year period, but not a single city in this country actually budgets for 40-year maintenance for a tree. They go on the ground, everybody loves it, it's a great show, then you forget about it until somebody dies. That led us to devise ways of monetizing city trees using carbon markets. Every tree that you plant sucks out carbon dioxide, and if we can measure it, then we can monetize it and sell those offsets. There was nothing on the marketplace. We partnered with Duke University, created a set of rules, tested in the marketplace, and now that's the only protocol, it's called Carbon Protocol, in the world to monetize city-based trees. That helped us uncover the hidden and latent demand in those carbon markets. Nobody wants to participate in a marketplace that they don't trust. And there's a lot of overspending, a lot of problems with offsets not being real. The most recent one is Virgin Atlantic, which actually pulled back from a project in Cambodia because an NGO showed that the project they invested in wasn't actually producing the offsets or was harming the native population around the project site. Now, Virgin Atlantic didn't actually participate in the program to run the, they didn't operate the project, but they trusted verifiers, certifiers, and all sorts of people along the way that this was a real project and was not going to cause problems. When there was a problem shown to them, Virgin Atlantic doesn't care. They just don't want their name in the news, so they pulled out and said, we're not going to buy offsets from that. We know that there's hidden and latent demand because of that problem, so we've worked diligently to create trust in the marketplace and create and patent processes that treat carbon offsets like financial products, like mutual funds and bonds and stocks, and we've run 2 patents on that right now. This helped us create products that tested well in the marketplace. We launched our brand new product July 14, 2017. Since then, have had explosive growth that I'm going to be talking about that all prove traction points that we're on the right course. And that brought us to the center of the valuable opportunity that I want to talk about today, and 2 needs that I have in the marketplace that we're struggling with right now. So the problem that we're solving is misaligned revenue management for airlines. They're doing carbon offsets wrong. My co-founder was flying from DC to Oslo on KLM. This is a screenshot from her checkout process. For a family of 4, she was being asked to pay $47.40 to make that flight carbon neutral. And she's being asked to compare that carbon neutrality cost with discount on extra baggage and choose your seat for legroom. Guess which ones are always going to win? It's not going to be the offsets. And number 2, everybody is doing it wrong too. They say local communities in Panama are going to receive the benefits of their purchase, not DC, not Oslo. Again, a significant problem in the marketplace and a misalignment between what the product is supposed to do and what it's actually doing. Hence the opportunity. Create a carbon offset product that generates revenue for airlines and then use a portion of our revenue to build climate resilient cities. I have a meeting, I don't want to talk about it actually. We have meetings with cities. This part here about building climate resilient cities, that's the next big thing. But for now, we're focusing on a demographic group called Gen Edgers. Gen Edgers is the group after millennials that is being called the most important financial demographic since the baby boomers. They're going to have more value than the baby boomers, and so everybody's focused on them. Gen Edgers are the only emerging high-value customer that matters to corporations today for growth, having more potential value than any prior generation. That was Delta Airlines Gen Edge Customer Insight Research here with us last August. Gen Edgers are going to generate more than 50% of Delta's revenue by 2020. They're 60% more likely than any other generation to buy flight upgrades. In fact, supplying Wi-Fi, secure Wi-Fi, and will change behavior, and it's been shown. And then in our own research, we found that 68% of students, university students, would choose an equally priced carbon neutral flight if given the option. So, airlines have generated cutting-edge revenue management strategies for Gen Edgers, like providing upgrades like Wi-Fi, but those strategies always fall short when they're applied to carbon neutrality. So essentially, they're missing one of the large opportunities available to them. So when we looked at the research, and we looked at the airlines, 258 major airlines that are signing the United Nations compliance marketplace for carbon, have purchased $3 billion worth of carbon offsets in 2016. But not a single dollar has been associated with raising revenue. So every one of those $3 billion is an expense today. That's a significant problem. Delta Airlines right now has spent over $8 million over the last 5 years buying carbon offsets. By show of hands, who knew that? Exactly, that's a problem. So our solution, use carbon offsets to make flights carbon neutral, no additional or observable charge to the traveler. Carbon neutrality can become unlocked when the traveler upgrades their flight. Upgrade your flight, receive carbon neutral status. Tie it to a key performing indicator. This is what we're talking about. This is one of my flights, actually that's my Sky Miles number, from Raleigh to Columbus last week. The traveler receives carbon neutral flight status when completing the purchase of a seat upgrade. The airline purchases offsets from us using about 2% of the upgrade costs. That's it. We track the purchase of the flight upgrades and provide reports to universities and corporations who purchase the upgrades. That's important. And we use 40% of our revenue to plant and care for new trees in underserved communities across American cities that matter. So we tested this out with Delta Airlines last year. This was a huge, it was very important for us, and as a startup founder, to have a company like Delta Airlines trust us was very, very important. I called Steve Tochland, Global Head of Sustainability at Delta, February 2017. That started the communication. And the goal here was to say, we already have a customer, Duke University, who wants to go carbon neutral by 2024. A large portion of their emissions is travel related, and they have no way of solving it. So, if you provided carbon neutral flights to Duke University by buying carbon offsets from us, I bet you more Duke University students are going to choose you. You're going to generate more revenue. So over the process of 2017, we worked out the details, signed a contract in September, and then Duke and Delta split the cost evenly, 50-50. 1,000 new trees were planted in Durham, North Carolina between last October and March. That is, there was maybe 20 planting opportunities. Those trees went in red-lined neighborhoods around Durham that did not receive trees 100 years ago when trees were, well, most of the trees in the cities in the U.S. were planted because of racial divides. So this is a direct relationship to solving those social injustices. It produced a lot of nice media attention, but left an open goal. Show that the students are choosing Delta after the program, specifically because of neutrality, right? Right now, the data we have is fuzzy. And this is an open goal. This is something that I'm challenged with right now, is how do we correlate the purchase with carbon neutrality? One of the things that we're trying to do is run an A/B split test with airlines, okay? Airlines like running A/B split tests. So for JetBlue, if you choose Blue, I don't know if that's showing up, it's really fuzzy from my end. That's Blue, that's their lowest level economy seat, okay? If you choose that, you're automatically met with a pop-up that says, hey, look at all the benefits you get if you upgrade. So an A/B split test would have a control group and a variation group, where one of them would be provided with another line, just a straight up line that's saying, if you upgrade, you will receive carbon neutral status. And that would be a way for us to determine specifically how many people are choosing to upgrade because of carbon neutrality versus those who are not. The market opportunity is one based on business travel. all right, business travel and university travel. Corporations fly and compete for gen edgers as employees and customers. In fact, that's what we're talking to one of the largest corporations in the world right now about recruiting of gen edgers, and this is all associated with it. $550 billion spent on business flights globally, $1.5 billion spent upgrading seats on Delta Airlines in 1 year alone. That's not an insignificant revenue generator, giving us an immediately addressable market of $7.5 billion. That's a 2% fee-based revenue model on seat upgrades from 250 publicly traded commercial airlines. Our revenue model has changed consistently. I won't focus too much on this, but essentially what we've done, actually the next slide shows it. What we've done is we've moved from a single contract in 2016 of about 10,000 to an annually recurring one. All of our pilot customers have re-upped and significantly raised and increased contracts. But what we want is an automated recurring transaction. We're trying to automate this process so we're not pulling revenue, revenue is pushed to us through an action, okay? Our first contact to close has dropped dramatically, 6 to 9 months, 60 to 90 days. We just had Burton Snowboards re-up with one email to them saying, hey, here's the impact of your 2017 investment in New York City's projects. Would you like to re-up? Yes. Our customers, Delta, Etsy, Coke, Burton, Vail Resorts, Four Saints is one of our newest ones. Universities, public, private, small, large, all over the country. We're operating in 20 cities across the country, and every city we work in, we sign 40-year exclusive contracts with. So we own that market when we go in. There's only one New York City, so trees that go in New York City are 40-year contracts with us. That's a very important part of our business plan. Our nonprofit partners. We like to work with nonprofits when a municipality does not have evidence that it's going to actually use the funds we give them towards urban forestry. The last thing I want is to have Delta Airlines come to me and say, well, our money that we gave you didn't actually go towards those trees. Do you know where it went? Well, if I don't have a very straight up answer, that's a problem. So with City of Phoenix and Tempe, we work directly with their urban forestry department and their sustainability department to make sure that the money goes directly back in, and that's exciting. I'm a climate scientist by background. Okay, I have a master's in climate science and environmental systems from Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada, and spent about 15 years as an environmental consultant working across North and South America. My business development director is Connie. She came to us from California when her husband was headhunted by VF Group in Greensboro. She's successfully defended trademarks. She's run her own company and brings a lot of expertise and a lot of discipline, sales discipline to the team. And then we have Jessica and Anna, my two co-founders, who are advisors right now, but have exit experience, have a wide breadth of experiences that help us. We won an NCIDEA grant in 2015, the only green tech that I'm aware of to ever win that competition, and we now advise other competitors in there. We secured a seed round investment in 2016 from Co-Founders Capital. And we have a team of advisors, most notably Deborah Martin, Executive Director of the New York Restoration Project, Beth Midler's nonprofit, as one of our advisors, and that's superbly important and valuable to us. Challenge number 2 is, okay, I want to pause. I know I've got maybe 1 minute left, and this is kind of so classifying every newly planted tree as an offset generating asset. Right now, we invented this product where we take carbon offsets that are generated anywhere in the world. We risk grade them with a patented process like Moody's does for stocks and bonds. Then we aggregate them together so you can have 5 different offsets, maybe some renewable energy certificates from 5 different countries, and then you bundle those together with the tree, and the tree becomes the insurance product. We're not selling offsets from the tree. In fact, all of the trees that go in the ground, we own the rights to all the offsets produced by those trees. Okay, and we're not selling them, but they're hugely valuable because the price of an offset is determined by where it's located and how close it is to the customer. So there's only one New York City, right? Contracts with each city provide us with the rights to every carbon offset. But in 2020, we're expecting the offset price to pass $25 a ton, which makes every single tree worth $125 to $500. Okay. That's not insignificant, and we don't show that on our asset sheets right now because this is honestly within like 2 weeks we're looking at. And when we look at this with large cities and medium cities, it's not insignificant. 34 U.S. cities can provide $85 to $340 million a year in asset generation, And same for the medium population cities, up to 105 million. This is a significant part of the business that we haven't really explored because we've been focused on generating revenue to keep us open. And it's fine, but that's what it is. And that's where we're at. I have a lot more slides about attraction and whatnot, but I wanted to focus this on a few key points. So thank you very much for your time.
It's very interesting. Strangely, I'm seeing, especially in this area of North Carolina or in Vance County, where I live part of the week, huge solar farms coming in, like taking up thousands,
Yep.
hundreds of acres. Is anybody working there
No.
to see? No.
Right, that's a problem.
And we're seeing it actually right in RTP too. I'm seeing large areas of trees just.
How many residential properties clear trees to plant one or two on a property? That's not being taken care of. In Florida, a lot of cities have canopy goals. If you remove a tree, you have to replace the canopy. That's not North Carolina.
Relation to your A/B testing, so I understand you're looking at the one-off, which is that one line. But related to, do I also get, or whoever sees that, yeah, there you go. So whoever sees that basically line up right, are they? Because I mean inherently, unless I knew about kind of what you're talking about, or there's some education that I think is going to be needed there. I don't know if that comes up within your pop-up or something to that effect. Because I mean, just seeing that, it's like, all right, I upgraded, I spent my money, my physical money to get some sort of carbon offset, which again might make me feel good. That's nice, but I'm still trying to.
Yeah, here. The motivation behind the choice, right? And so what we found is the carbon offset itself has very little value. All right, 10% of from our research with 2,700 individual interviews with people in the marketplace, we found that the offset itself, that 1 metric ton, only has about 10% of perceived value in the whole price. 90% of the perceived value is in the product or the source or the benefit. So we've looked at things like, well, what if you just show that line is, we'll plant trees to offset your carbon, right? Like there's ways you can phrase it where trees will be planted in New York City and only show this to people flying out of New York, right? There's a lot of business to consumer products right now that will offset your travel, but the mistake there is thinking that an offset has real value that a customer understands. And so we can avoid that by saying, look, the offset doesn't matter. What matters is the partnership with nonprofits that are building tangible things in your community. So if we can, I hear you, I don't have an answer, but this is my thinking on it, is maybe it's the trees that matter. Maybe the line says, you know what, Delta or JetBlue will make this carbon neutral, don't worry about it, we've got this, and we'll plant trees to double the effort.
Well, I'm almost tempted to say you might want to also put in the actual nonprofits that you work with, because there are people that donate their time and money to particular nonprofits.
That's a good point.
So, and people, I guess, again, because I wouldn't want you to do this A/B testing and then really coming up with results that are not indicative of what you're trying to get, right? Because people just don't know.
And that's why I don't want to run willy-nilly with this. I want to do this right, and so you're absolutely right. I want help with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Rick?
Yeah, just in regards to your transactions, have you looked at or tried to do a modified blockchain so it would be open access?
Yes.
So you're looking at doing
Yeah.
that. And the other thing to take a look at is this is one channel, but have you approached or taken a look at some of the utilities like Duke and some of the other ones around the area, especially in New York City?
So in terms of utilities, what we're looking to do is do power purchase agreements that include trees, carbon offsets, renewable energy certificates, and community solar programs. Okay, and there's an opportunity to do that in New York City for Pace University. There's an opportunity to do it here, I think, but we don't know. So as an entrepreneur, you go path. Where's the evidence take me, and where's the evidence going? That's a long-term view, but that's not going to keep our doors open today. So my job, the answer is yes, it needs to, but I don't know when yet.
Actually, kind of two thoughts on this. You had mentioned a range of what a tree is worth.
Yes.
Between 125 and $500.
Yes, sir.
Is that because the maturity of the tree might have different effect in terms of its ability to take in carbon, or, you know, through its maturity, or is that a function of the amount of volume of people flying in or out of a particular city? Like how is that?
So that number there is based on think about a tree as a stock that generates value. So an oak generates more stock than a crepe myrtle. An oak can produce 20 carbon credits, where a crepe myrtle will only produce 5. So that's what that's based on. What we're doing right now is from a scientific point of view, is there are industry standard ways to care for a tree, and if a tree is cared for, then that tree should generate 60% more carbon credits than an unmaintained tree.
Got it. My second thought is, you know, who would probably have an interest in working with you on this is the people who are big into airline leasing.
Airline leasing.
AIG, you know, there's major finance companies that provide significant financing for the purchase of fleets. And it would seem logical to me, they're setting up financial models all day long.
Okay.
This would be a really interesting accoutrement, if you would, to add into the mix. Because it's a lifetime of a plane,
Yeah.
it's going to produce X amount, but you know, they're going to have a mathematical way to prove this out.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
In the back.
I'm just curious, when I think about your model about trees, obviously your long-term for 40 years sustainability must include some seasonality to trees that are in North Carolina are different than those would be in New York, for example. Are those credits variable based on that, or is it just a flat rate that somebody who has a tree has assumed that this is the amount of carbon displacement that's taking place?
So right now, there are no carbon models for urban-based trees. Okay, every growth model is based on a rural species, an oak tree planted in a non-urban setting. We are the first mass data set for how trees grow in a city across the country. So what we do know is that an oak tree planted in, I guess this is the easiest way. By partnering with nonprofits and cities in the area, we can do things called right tree, right place, and work with them on what tree is going to go work best in the climate. But we do know that a tree growing in Phoenix is going to produce much less, maybe even like 80% less than that same species if it was planted in Piedmont Triad, for example. We do know that, and so we can model that out, and then get data over the years. And once we have, you know, even 5 years of data, you can just project that out.
So I guess that's what leads really to my question. I do compliance auditing for the North Carolina Department of Ag.
Okay.
So how would you prove your data? How would you be able to be held accountable for what you say you've saved in terms of that? It sounds like there isn't a way right now.
So every carbon offset has to be produced using a set of rules called a protocol, a carbon protocol. Okay, those protocols have third-party verification that comes into play. All right, the ones that existed before we created this marketplace had never produced a single carbon credit in a city because they were really poorly written and couldn't be applied. That's why we partnered with Duke University to write our own. And what we've invented is this thing called a peer validation network. Right now, American University students, under the guidance of a sustainability director, have come down and verified all of Duke University's projects across the state of North Carolina. Okay, so that's one verification standard, but that's not commercially viable. So the way I look at this is, let's say Urban Offsets exits in 5 years from now, okay, which is awesome. Just like selling a house, you want an appraised value of the assets. At that point in time, we would get a third-party verifier from one of the 4 exchanges, like the Gold Standard, to come out and verify all of our work. We're already recording everything in an open database, and we're using the standards that are accepted by the marketplace, so they can do an audit. We're trying to protect ourselves that way.
All the way front.
Just 2 things real quick. I relocated here from Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is one of the top tree cities in the nation. And they didn't have a program similar to yours, but they did have a program back in the 40s and 50s where they planted a ton of trees. And quite frankly, now the city can't keep up with the maintenance.
That's the problem across the country.
You know, so, but number 2 is, I'm sure you've thought of this, but you might want to reach out to, say, a Hertz, because a rental car company might be very interested in this, and they produce an awful lot of carbon also.
Rental companies, ride shares, and cruise lines. Right, we're partnering with Audubon Society in South Florida, right next to Port Everglades, to do what is it, 50,000 tree mangrove preserve. And mangroves are the best carbon sequester trees in the entire world. Once we have that locked down, the science locked down, we're going to go to Carnival and look at it that way. Hertz is
Yes, so question, have you considered allowing people to contribute to a specific tree?
Yes.
Either plant it or maintain it?
Yes.
Now, that would create a logistical nightmare for you, I'm sure, to know which city, which tree is planted in.
No,
and
we
on
can-
which corner of which street.
Well, I guess it depends. So we partnered with Etsy last year, and we did a tree giveaway program at one of their headquarters, where their employees. This is the lovely kind of connection in with employee engagement. Their employees volunteered to help give trees away to people off the campus and the citizens, and employees also took trees home. Okay, but in order to take a tree home, you have to tell us where it is, and so we can then check it later on. And part of what we want to do is, and we're working on, is partner with a national group like Davy Resources, who can bring consistency to inventories across the country.
So if you put it on the airline ticket,
That would be
your tree will
we
be
could,
planted.
and with blockchain, we could do that.
You could give coordinates and people go to Google Maps and they'll come see.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. This is your tree. In Charlotte, all of our trees in Charlotte are planted on public school properties, right? So that again is one of these things where that connected value, that tangible aspect of a tree, is something that's quite valuable and under-monetized right now.
I'm sorry, where'd you say it was planted, Charles?
In public property.
Public.
I applaud you for taking on a project like this because it's hard to find funding just in businesses that generate a lot of revenue. One of the things I wanted to just add and to give a suggestion to, don't forget about the elite people such as Jet Smarter. They might be interested in this because that helps them get a good name as well for help planting the tree. It would also be cool to get an app going where we kind of match trees with people who want a tree. I think you might have had that, but get some,
This is our product right now.
Yeah,
It's
there we go.
online. So you can actually see what the price of the carbon is, how much is gone, where the trees are. There's a timeline of events, a map of, you can go down to each tree, Kickstarter style photos. Yeah, it's
Right.
live right now.
And just, something that's kind of like a matchmaker would be, where I could just pull it up and say, this is what I would like a tree, I'll even help pay for one. So
How about a
maybe
thought?
you're doing that, but I don't see it so easy. So. Yeah, so like you're this side getting the money for the tree, but also find other people who would like to adopt a tree as well.
You might even want to go to
Kind of
nonprofit.
blend the two together.
Yeah, there's a lot of avenues here. We've tried to, I hear you, and what we try to do is create this product where it's like matchmaking, but for businesses. Hey, Emory University, Agnes Scott has done this and chosen these trees. You have a similar risk profile as them. Maybe you'd be interested in this project. But business to business sort of level, we haven't gone to the business to consumer yet.
Okay.
But thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you're just talking about organisms here that capture carbon. I wonder if you're
Sorry,
looking
what's
at
that?
you're looking at any technological means of capturing carbon.
Engineered solutions. Not in the context of this, but there is genetic modification of trees that could create a more potent species. But yes, sir.
What about kids' birthday parties? Buying kids. 60 years ago, when I was a kid, my grandparents used to buy trees in Israel.
Right.
It was like a big joke, but I had like hundreds of trees in Israel. Always wanted to go
Yeah.
visit my trees.
How long ago was that? Right.
That'd be a good thing to sort of spread out the growth of trees. Tree planting. I don't know if they still do that Israel thing.
No, they do. Yeah, we tried to talk to them about match tree in the U.S. when you plant one in Israel, stuff like that. Matching works really well for these sorts of things. There's so many ways that this can work. For us, the challenge is to find that quick way in, and then go, like a mile deep on it.
Could you use that concept of the partnering with sister cities then? So for
Yeah, I have I gave a presentation at Ohio State last week, and that was based on that, is the connection between community, university, corporation, and how there's all this overlapping emissions and desire. You see a lot of cities suing fossil fuel companies right now and arguing about whose fault the emissions are. Well, that's all, stop playing in the sand. That's not important. What's important is to find ways and values so everybody just kind of solves it together. Yes, sir?
I'm assuming that one of your asks is maybe for money and backing for this
Yes.
concept.
Yes, it is.
What's occurring to me, and it's because I'm working on a project similar to this right now, follow the money. This really becomes a sub-asset class, an alternative asset class is really what this becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So much money is pouring into alternative assets, real estate, utilities, toll roads, farmland, timberland, you
Right.
name it. This is another one. It would seem logical to me that you could probably get a fair amount of sovereign wealth funds, family offices, and pension funds to want to put some of their money behind this kind of initiative.
I've run, the answer, I would, absolutely. You're like, that's a dream. Because the idea behind all this is that it doesn't matter it matters where the trees go in. Santam, a South African insurance company, is planting trees specifically around agricultural areas, farmland that it insures to hedge against drought risk, right? And this becomes one of those asset classes where, New York, right? We want to work on Jamaica Bay with the Natural Areas Conservancy to improve that and monetize that asset because it has, as Superstorm Sandy proved, has a very tangible value and insurance value to the city. So what's missing is the value of a single tree in a single place right now. Like that information doesn't exist. If I plant this tree here, run a hurricane through, and then rewind time, don't plant the tree, and let the hurricane go through, what's the difference in value? That's where I'm stuck with. But yes, hedging future risk, this is absolutely true. Look at Houston, all of the wetlands that they destroyed to pave over. This is, the last storm, and the results of that storm have a direct correlation with what they did to the land. Companies like UPS, logistics companies, or DHL who go in and do disaster relief, recognize that if they drive, or if they have certain locations where the headquarters are, or drive a certain location, then they're subject to risks that are climate determined. The models are down to 25 square miles now. They can determine the impacts of climate change. Okay, that's how good the models are now. But I could talk ad nauseum about that, but it's really interesting.
And UPS happens to be an institutional investor. Their pension funds are large enough by themselves that they can invest, they could put $10 billion into this and they wouldn't,
And we look at the teachers' pension in California.
CalPERS,
Right.
massive.
Cal
They're
Fire.
the biggest institution in the world, actually.
So,
Last question.
Just one thing, just locally, to leverage some of the stuff Robert said, but it has a lot of network, is have you talked to Cherokee?
I did talk to them the year after they stopped their challenge. So we do some fundraising, but most of it's revenue generation right now.
Well, they've got a lot of connections with the larger funds.
I would love to.
Just talk to them.
A lot of our interest in investment is coming outside the state. It kind of stinks. I'm just not hitting something. It's my mistake. It's not. I definitely own this.
I'll get you contacts.
Thank you.
You'll be able to stick around a little bit?
I have to run in a couple minutes. I got a meeting. But thank you. I will stick.
All right.
Thank you very much.
good. So for those of you who wish to continue a conversation with Shawn, come to the front real quick. So, Shawn, thank you very, very much. Al, also, thank you for making the drive. I